So Dan, what is the Exchange?
So Mark, the Exchange is a learning center and member community geared towards the education, the development, and the collaboration with general counsel of the world's leading companies as they explore digital solutions to their everyday problems.
How did the Exchange come about?
The Exchange came about through listening to the major and leading companies of the world. General counsel have been challenged by a range of topics, a range of issues that they've been faced with over the last several years that tie in with the digital movement that has already made major headway in the business units, the shared services departments of the company, but has not yet extended to legal.
Why do you think that is?
I think general counsel in particular have been constrained by budget, they've been constrained by technology, and they've been constrained by the level of expertise needed to implement these very audacious, complex, but yet very powerful digital agendas. And that, in essence, is why the Exchange was formed, was to fill in this massive void when it comes to expertise and facilitation.
Tell us a little bit about how and why, in your view, DXC, a Fortune 500 company, would actually commit to funding a organization like this that is in the legal realm.
Well, DXC is committed to digital without constraint across the entire corporate landscape. And that so far has included every major business discipline as well as shared services discipline. As we mentioned, the most significant department in major companies in the world today that has not yet fully embraced or advanced the cause or the principle of digital is legal.
What consequences do you think that has both for the legal function as well as the enterprise as a whole?
Well, it's massive because digital is an incredibly empowering method or modality to drive enterprise value. And with digital having made significant inroads throughout almost, as we talked about, almost every other area of the organization, to finally bridge or be translated to legal is an accelerant to the full kind of digital vision. The opportunity for legal is massive in that professionals can advance and develop their careers in ways that are as rich and as diverse as digital itself. And so the two kind of coming together now really enable the full realization of what digital was meant to be.
Now, you, of course, have had your own digital journey with Bill Deckelman, the general counsel of DXC. How much of that, from your experience, was a driver in terms of the formation of the Exchange?
I think it was a significant example of what is being faced more and more by the leaders of law departments around the world. The challenges that Bill faced are no different than what are being faced by the major general counsels across the globe. And so it helped refine a lot of the thinking around what are those basic building blocks of how you implement digital. Digital can be a somewhat amorphous concept. It's hard for people to define, but when you take a very serious, pragmatic view of how you implement and design digital, then it becomes more real, and then the value starts to flow. And that's what's been accomplished by DXC, both as an existing kind of user of digital and legal, but then also an evangelist.
Got it. And could you talk a little bit about the kinds of benefits and results that came about in your collaborative journey with DXC, and why it is that they may be true believers in terms of why it is that digital has such an impact not only on the OGC, the Office of General Counsel, but also on the wider enterprise?
The benefits to be realized by legal with respect to digital are the same as what's experienced by the major business units and shared services units of the significant companies that are out there in the global Fortune 500, for example. And those center around four main areas. One is in the area of revenue generation. So companies that embrace digital experience competitive advantage as it relates to revenue generation. They experience advantage when it comes to sheer performance benefit. So being more efficient, more effective in how these businesses execute their vision is something that is a derivative of digital. Cost reduction is another major benefit that flows from being digital. And the fourth is risk. Severe risk reduction, a better handling, a better management of risk is the final key element that or benefit that goes to companies that embrace digital.
Sounds like the stakes are very high for not going digital.
Either way, they're high for going or not going. I think the impact to organizations is profound. So I think that it has an impact even on earnings per share. It has a major impact on how underwriters assess their organizations, how shareholders look at the organizations. So those that are proactive will run far less afoul of any activist shareholders, or those that are wondering, is their company doing all that it can to extract value and deliver value to the marketplace? And those that don't get on board are likely to go the way of the dinosaur in terms of, corporate evolution.
So it sounds like going digital is much more of a process than something you just simply declare that you are adding on.
Correct. Digital is not something that you add on. You become digital. It's a cultural impact phenomenon, as well as one that is extremely tangible in the results that are received.
Tell us a little bit about how the exchange is different from the wealth of other programs out there in executive education, business schools, a handful of law schools. How is the exchange different?
I think you can sum it up in one word, and that's impact. So unlike a lot of other well-intentioned educational or thought leader or think tank kinds of organizations that give out certifications or give workshops that are fairly individualistic and don't have a clear mandate or objective, the exchange is very different in that it's intended to demonstrate quantifiable as well as qualitative impact for the organization that is measurable just as you would measure ROI. So it's practical, but it has impact and therefore has significant relevance for the companies whose participants, or whose professionals, better said, go through the exchange.
Tell us a little bit about the composition of some of the key players in the exchange. I know that you have gone beyond just the typical lawyer, academic, practitioner kind of model. Tell us a little bit about how you've also brought in business, technology, and from a global kind of a perspective.
Well, the word I mentioned before of impact is a filter that we look at or use to evaluate every component of how the exchange is operated, if you will, right? So the faculty of the exchange is comprised of people that not only have great knowledge about what digital is and how it can be translated, but are very, very mindful of the practical impact of that. So the faculty is comprised of not just academicians, but academicians that are very tied at the hip, very much tied at the hip with the business community and are very conscious of measurement. So you hear a lot of buzzwords around artificial intelligence, advanced data analytics, a range of other tools and processes, but how do those actually yield measurable benefit? And the faculty members that are comprised from all walks of professional sectors of academics, general counsel of elite Fortune 500 companies, other elite executives and consultants and advisors, they all have that common thread, which makes it very, very different than a lot of other organizations that are more concerned about titles or publications versus actual results.
Now, having gone through that exercise with Bill Deckelman and his DXC teams and their business counterparts, was this one of the impetuses for creation of the exchange, that you guys thought that maybe this could be replicated and shared with other companies?
It's not just within DXC, because while UnitedX certainly has done some very compelling digital journeys or digital paths with DXC, DXC is just one company that UnitedX has worked with. There are many others that have also gone on these digital type journeys, and it was looking at the holistic kind of landscape, not only of DXC and call it a dozen other companies internally to UnitedX, but also in looking at the entire corporate landscape, realizing that the digital journey is not one that is a fad, right? It's not something that exists in pockets. It's a very holistic movement that is going across all major companies today. And so it's meant to address that.
Got it. And you're fond of using the word reimagining the legal function and the delivery of legal services. Could you put a little meat to the bone to that term and what you mean by it in that context?
I actually prefer it's the relationship of reimagining with art of the possible, because for so long, law departments have justifiably been limited or constrained from embarking on a digital journey for a range of reasons. And removing those constraints and enabling the leaders in law departments to think in art of the possible, unconstrained terms, is what the exchange is all about.
It sounds to me like a lot of the business value generation will require a kind of a reimagination of the way lawyers function. I wonder if you agree with that statement, and if so, if you could maybe amplify in what way you think that digitally advanced lawyers might function somewhat differently than those that are not along the digital journey.
Well, lawyers are bright, right? And lawyers are creative. The only need for any type of reimagination is a removal of constraints that have been there that have prevented this sort of free flow of thinking, ideation, of art of the possible type thinking. The exchange is a powerful force in removing some key constraints, especially when it comes to expertise, access to the types of information and resources to actually go on a digital journey. And those are some of the powerful factors that the exchange brings to the equation. A core tenet of going digital is a powerful sense of client centricity, almost a hyper client-centric mindset. So being able to bring in the business units as well as key members of other shared services areas like HR, finance, supply chain, sales, sales support, and say accounting and finance, is that it brings a much more holistic response or solution design to the table. And digital does not operate in a vacuum. It is not something that the legal department does on its own. It does bring in all corners of the organization into a almost think tank environment, an execution tank environment, which is one of the powerful reasons why digital is so successful when it's fully realized.